My name is Noah Walker. I'm 34. Every weekday morning, I wake up at exactly 7:30. I brew a pot of coffee while the water hisses like something breathing too close. I button my shirt, tighten my belt, and slip on the same pair of navy slacks. I don't remember buying them, but they're always clean. By 8:15, I'm walking the 4 blocks to work, BrayTech Systems. A squat, gray building tucked between a shuttered laundromat and a neon-lit dental office. Every day, I badge myself in at 8:57. The little green light flashes. The door clicks. I step inside. Inside is beige. It smells like paper and carpet cleaner and something faintly metallic. The open office floor plan is dotted with 8 desks, each with a clunky monitor, an overwatered plant, and stacks of beige folders. My desk is the third from the left, under the flickering strip light that no one ever fixes. I sit. I log in. I analyze. Data. Reports. Numbers that shift, but never change. Heather sits diagonally across from me. She wears the same knitted cardigan every day, pale blue, moth-eaten at the cuffs. When she laughs, it's like someone blowing air across the top of a bottle. Then there's Charles, the developer. Hair like static, always eating tuna straight from the can with a plastic fork. He once offered me a bite. I said no. We don't talk much. We don't need to. The work doesn't leave room for conversation. Just the rhythmic tapping of keys and the occasional muttering printer. Nothing's wrong, but nothing's really right either. I've done this for years. The same walk, same seat, same spreadsheets. No raises. No layoffs. No holidays. Until one Tuesday morning, I left my keys in the taxi. That's when everything cracked. It was such a small mistake. I left my keys in the back seat of the cab. I remember seeing them as the doors swung shut, glinting on the seat like a warning. The driver had already merged into traffic by the time I turned around. I went back upstairs to my apartment. I had 27 minutes before I was officially late. I poured myself another cup of coffee, tried calling the cab company, then reached for my phone to let the office know I'd be late. Simple. Routine. BrayTech Systems, this is... Sorry, who are you trying to reach? A woman's voice. Not Heather. Not anyone I recognized. This is Noah Walker. I work there. I said slowly. Can you tell Heather in accounting I'll be about an hour late? Silence. Then, I think you have the wrong number. I paused, checking the number. I had it saved in my contacts. The same one I'd used 100 times before. No, this is BrayTech, right? A longer silence now. I could hear her breathing. That company went under in 2007, sir. I let out a confused laugh. I think you're mistaken. I'm not, she said quietly. It's been gone for 18 years. The line went dead. The first thing I did was Google it. BrayTech Systems. No website. No LinkedIn profile. The Facebook page hadn't been touched since June 2006. The last post was a blurry photo of a cake for someone's birthday. I stared at the comments. They were all from people I'd never heard of. Half the accounts were deactivated. I went to the Secretary of State's registry for Delaware, where I knew the company was incorporated. Typed in the name. Entity, BrayTech Systems Incorporated. Status, dissolved. Date, October 4th, 2007. I refreshed the page. I even tried a different browser. Same result. Then, as a final test, I asked ChatGPT. I typed, does BrayTech Systems still exist? The reply came instantly. BrayTech Systems was dissolved in 2007 following a structural collapse that damaged the company's headquarters. Several employees were killed. The company never resumed operations. My fingers froze over the keyboard. Killed? I looked around my apartment, half expecting to find something off. The walls looked the same. The light through the blinds was the same dull, grayed-out white. The plants on the windowsill drooped. My coffee had gone cold. My heart was still. The company I had worked at every single day, just yesterday, hadn't existed for almost 2 decades. The next morning, my body moved before I could stop it. My alarm buzzed at 7:30, and I rose like I was pulled by invisible strings. I got dressed. Same navy slacks, same white shirt. I didn't question it. The motions were too deeply ingrained. I walked the same 4 blocks to work. I passed the same bakery with the crooked, open sign. The same hunchman feeding pigeons outside the pharmacy. The same peeling billboard for an insurance company that had probably gone out of business, too. When I reached the corner, I paused. BrayTech Systems stood exactly where it always had. The faded signage, the glass doors, the chipped facade, not a single thing out of place. I scanned my badge. Green light. Click. I stepped inside. The same beige smell hit me. Paper. Dust. Cheap carpet. Heather was already at her desk, hunched over an Excel sheet. Her pale blue cardigan was buttoned all wrong. Charles slurped from a tuna can near the water cooler. I stared at them. Too long, maybe. Morning, I said, testing reality. Heather looked up and smiled faintly. You look pale, Noah. Everything okay? I sat at my desk, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I didn't respond. After a few minutes, I turned to her. When's the last time you updated your LinkedIn profile? She blinked. My what? LinkedIn. You know, job networking. Heather tilted her head. That a kind of printer? I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. Her eyes didn't move, still fixed on me. Slowly, the smile faded. Her lips pressed into a thin line, and she turned back to her spreadsheet. I glanced around. The office was too quiet now. Even the printer, which normally made odd whirring noises at random intervals, was silent. No beeping, no paper jam, no hum of machinery, just stillness. Then Charles muttered from behind his monitor. You shouldn't be here. I froze. What? But he didn't repeat himself. He simply forked another slab of tuna into his mouth and looked back at his screen. I tried to stay calm. I really did. I walked to the break room, ran the tap water, but it came out in short, metallic coughs, spitting rust and air. The vending machine screen glitched between $0 and a blank green square. I checked the employee calendar on the wall. It still said October 2007. No birthdays coming up. No scheduled meetings. Just a fading smiley face drawn beside a box marked Final Archive. I felt the panic start to rise, hot, fast, like static crawling on my throat. I needed proof. I went to the internal server. Only I and the IT guy, who I hadn't seen in weeks, had access. I entered the admin credentials, my credentials, and clicked through folders. Finance, HR, projects. Every single file was dated between 2004 and 2007. Not a single one newer. I opened the most recent document. Final Closure Protocol, for internal use only. Dated October 12, 2007. Authored by Noah Walker. My hands trembled. I scrolled down. The document outlined instructions for locking down data, disposing of physical assets, and final communication to staff. There was a checklist, and at the bottom, my digital signature. I had signed off on shutting down BrayTech, and yet I was still here. The office was colder than usual. Not in temperature. It was something else. A sterile silence, like the building itself was holding its breath. I didn't return to my desk. I couldn't. Instead, I stood in the corner of the break room, staring at the flickering ceiling light as if it might give me answers. In my pocket, my phone vibrated. One notification. Memory full. Unable to save video. I hadn't been recording. I hadn't even taken out the camera. I opened the gallery. The last photo was dated October 12, 2007. A blurry image. My desk. The flickering light above it. A shape just outside the frame. Maybe a person. Maybe not. I checked my texts. My call log. My email. Everything before this morning was gone. Only one draft email sat in my outbox. Half written, unsent. To whoever finds this. If this place disappears again, look in the... That was it. Nothing more. I backed out of the break room and returned to the main floor. But something had shifted. Heather's desk was empty. Charles was gone. His tunic was still there, half full, the fork stabbed straight into the meat like someone had left in the middle of a bite. I called out. No answer. I checked the hallway, the meeting room, the supply closet. Empty. Only my own footsteps followed me. Only my own breathing echoed in the silence. I should have left, but I couldn't. Something was pulling at me. Not curiosity, not fear, but something worse. Familiarity. I walked past my desk and toward the server room. No one ever went in there except me. It had always been my domain, cold, humming, filled with blinking lights and dusty routers stacked like bones. I used my keycard. It beeped red. I tried again. Still red. I stared at the card. At my name, my photo, my signature. Everything was correct. Then the door unlocked on its own. Click. The room was dark. The servers were off. All of them. No blinking. No hum. Just one ancient monitor glowing blue on the far table. CRT, bulky, with the BrayTech logo burned faintly into the screen. A single line of text blinked at the bottom. Do you remember the collapse? My mouth went dry. I didn't. Not exactly. Just flashes, rubble, a red fire alarm, the scream of twisted metal, the smell of something sharp and chemical. A hand reaching for mine, a noise like thunder cracking inside my skull. I tried to back away, but the door shut behind me with a snap. The screen changed. You signed a shutdown. You locked the doors. You kept coming back. Then, one final line. Why won't you let us rest? I don't know how long I stood there, staring at the screen. The monitor buzzed faintly, as if it were breathing. The letters trembled. Not like a glitch, but like they were shivering. I turned around, tried the door. Locked. No sound from the hallway. It was just me and the machines, all dead, except for this one relic pulling messages from God knows where. On instinct, I reached for the keyboard. Who are you? I typed. Nothing. Then slowly, one line appeared. You know us. The lights in the server room blinked once, just once. And in that split second, the room looked wrong. Larger than it should be. The walls stained, wires crawling upward like vines. I tried typing again. What happened in 2007? The monitor flickered. Static. Then, a face. For half a second, grainy, low-res, someone staring into the camera. Eyes wide, lips moving in a silent scream. Then black. Then text. You were the last to leave. You locked us in. I backed away. My heart thudded in my ears. I had no memory of this. I didn't remember signing any shutdown protocol. I didn't remember any collapse. I didn't remember locking anyone in. And yet, there was a weight pressing against my chest. Guilt without shape. Shame without cause. The monitor went dark. The door creaked open. I didn't wait. I ran. Down the hallway. Past the empty desks. Past Heather's abandoned chair and Charles's silent monitor. Every light overhead now flickered in a different rhythm, like they were blinking in code. When I reached the lobby, the receptionist's desk was empty. It had always been empty. I never saw anyone sit there. But now there was something else. A row of photos pinned to the corkboard. Black and white. Old. Almost decayed. They hadn't been there before. At the top was a printed header. In loving memory, October 12th, 2007. Faces I half recognized. Smiles frozen. Heather. Charles. A few others I couldn't name. And then, me. Middle row. Centered. Noah Walker. Data analyst. 1989 to 2007. I touched the photo. The paper felt too warm, as if it had just come off the printer. Suddenly, the sound of shuffling papers. From behind me, I turned. No one. Then a voice, low and soft, almost apologetic. Why did you come back? I spun around, heart hammering in my chest. The voice, it had come from just over my shoulder. But no one was there. The lobby was empty again. No wind. No humming from lights. Even a flicker above the receptionist's desk had stopped. I looked back at the corkboard. My photo was gone. Just a blank space between Heather and Charles. As if I had never been part of the memorial. Or had just been erased. I should have run. I should have left the building and never looked back. But something deeper than fear held me there. The way a dream convinces you it's real, even as the ground begins to crumble. I walked back into the corridor. Something had changed. The hallway looked longer. Wrong. Doors that didn't exist yesterday now lined the walls. 10, maybe 12. Identical. Featureless. No labels, no numbers, no lights under the frames. I tried the first. Locked. Second. Same. The third door creaked open, just a little. I pushed it wider and stepped inside. It was my apartment, down to the chipped tile near the kitchen. The same coffee stain on the carpet from last week. The same plant with a cracked pot leaning against the windowsill. But the windows? They showed nothing. Just a flat gray, like someone had taped ash-colored paper over the glass. I backed out. I tried the next door. A hospital room. Bright. Sterile. One bed, a heart monitor, a clipboard at the foot of the bed with my name on it. Noah Walker. Condition, comatose. Admission date, October 13th, 2007. A long, steady beep came from the monitor, a flat line. I slammed the door shut. Tried the next one. A classroom. Empty chairs. Chalkboard scrawled with a message in looping cursive. You keep forgetting because it hurts too much. I stared at it. The chalk began to crumble, word by word, as if being erased by invisible fingers. The final door at the end of the corridor stood open already. Inside, an office. Bare. Just a single desk. One chair. A mirror hanging crooked on the back wall. I stepped in. In a mirror, I saw myself. But not as I am now. Younger. 20-something. Clean-shaven. Wearing a BrayTech badge with a red stripe. Supervisor. He looked at me and smiled. Then, he opened his mouth. But I heard his voice inside my head. You signed a shutdown, but you never left. I shook my head. This isn't real. None of this is real. The smile faded. His reflection stood, came closer to the mirror. And then his hand, my hand, reached through the glass. I stumbled back. The mirror cracked down the center. When I looked again, it only reflected the empty office. No me. No one. Just silence. I left the room slowly, unsure if I'd truly moved or if the hallway itself had pulled me backward. The doors behind me were gone. The hallway had collapsed into itself, all but the one path leading back to the main floor. The flickering lights above now pulsed in perfect sync, like a heartbeat. I was sweating. My hands trembled. My breath came in short, clip bursts. And somewhere deep in the silence, I heard it again. Click work, click. The printer. It shouldn't have been running. Nothing in the office had printed anything in years. And yet, it was printing. I followed the sound. The old Xerox machine in the corner of the open space was rattling. Ink smeared across the rollers. A single sheet slid into the tray. I picked it up. Just 3 lines of text. The archive is not complete. We are still here. Come downstairs. There was no basement in BrayTech. I was sure of it. Or, at least, I had been. But then I remembered something odd from the server shutdown document. A final item listed beneath the checklist. Sublevel access, secure final logs, and personnel data, basement room B4. B4. I had never seen it, never accessed it, never thought to ask, but I'd signed a protocol, which meant I must have known. At the end of the main corridor was a narrow maintenance door I had always assumed was a janitor's closet. I tried the handle. It opened. A metal staircase spiraled down into darkness. No lights, just a faint humming below like machines breathing. I descended slowly. Each step creaked under my weight. Dust clung to the railings. And with each step, I felt more certain I had done this before, though I couldn't remember when. At the bottom, a heavy metal door marked B4 in faded red letters. I pushed it open. The room beyond looked like no part of the BrayTech office I'd ever known. A long corridor lined with server racks, newer than the ones upstairs. Red emergency lights blinked low on the walls, but none of it was connected. No power, just static lighting and cold air. At the far end, a glass-enclosed office glowed with soft blue light. I walked toward it. Inside, one monitor, one chair, a metal file cabinet. Dust coated everything. The monitor flickered to life as I entered. A command prompt blinked. Archive continuity, check. Incomplete. Recovery protocol, pending. User, Noah Walker. Status, missing since October 12, 2007. Error, user profile active. The screen pulsed once, then flashed. Welcome back, Noah. Final upload ready. And beneath it, a single button. Begin transfer. I didn't understand. What transfer? Why was it addressed to me? But my hand moved on its own. As I reached for the button, the blue light dimmed and the screen whispered a final line. Your body died, but you stayed. We all stayed. I pressed the key, and everything went black. Darkness wasn't empty. It buzzed. A low, droning hum filled my ears. Not sound, exactly, but a pressure. Like old static between radio stations. Like something searching for a signal inside my skull. Then flickers. Not light, but memory. Images blinked through my mind like dying film. A concrete floor shaking under my feet. Ceiling tiles raining down. Heather screaming. My hand gripping a door lever. Shouts behind me. A choice. Then silence. I opened my eyes, or I thought I did. I was still in the B4 server room, but it wasn't the same. The lights had changed. Everything was drenched in that sickly blue glow. The servers now pulsed with activity, as if alive. And from somewhere within them, voices began to rise. Noah, you said you'd help us. We waited for you. You left us here. Dozens of voices. Familiar. Distant. Chained to memory. I stumbled back from the console. The floor beneath my feet flickered, showing a grid, as if the room was being rendered, not real. I turned to run, but the door to the stairwell was gone. In its place was a wall of mirrors. 10 of them. In each reflection, a different version of me. One in a hospital gown. One in a suit. One covered in dust and blood. One holding a clipboard. One younger. One older. One with hollowed eyes and no mouth. All of them stared at me. Except one. The far right mirror was empty. I approached it. Slowly, cautiously. I stepped forward, and the mirror let me pass through like water. I was somewhere else. No BrayTech. No servers. Just fog. And then, through the haze, rows of desks, floating in a gray expanse. The office layout, perfectly preserved but suspended in nothingness. Heather sat at her usual place, typing something invisible. Charles munched from his tuna can, motionless. The others were there too, faces I barely remembered, all frozen mid-task. And in the center of the space, me. The version of me from the photo board. Young, clean, neat. He looked up as I approached. You finally made it, he said. I swallowed. Where is this? Archive space. Memory echo. Limbo. Call it what you want. If we ended up. Why? Because we didn't leave. Because you didn't let us. You kept showing up. So we kept existing. I shook my head. I didn't know. Didn't you? He smiled sadly. You came back here every day. Pretended it was still real. You fed it. The office around us trembled. A crack split the air above Heather's desk like glass breaking across the sky. Now the system's closing. The echo can't last. And we can't move on until you do. I looked around. The fog was thickening. Everyone was still. Fading. What happens if I stay? Then we loop again. Forever. Same data. Same coffee. Same printer home. And if I go? He paused. Then we rest. The fog swallowed the edge of the office. Only I remained. He stepped back. Into the desk. Into the floor. His eyes never left mine. All you have to do is stop coming back. Part 9. Exit Protocol. The fog curled around the remnants of the office like smoke around a dying fire. Desks blinked out one by one, not collapsing, just vanishing like a failed rendering. First Heather's station disappeared, then Charles, then the flickering ceiling light that had always buzzed above my desk. The last desk left standing was mine. Old me, the version from 2007, stood behind it, watching me. I asked, how do I leave? He didn't speak, just pointed to the far wall, where a door slowly materialized. It was tall, black, featureless, as if cut from shadow itself. No handle, no hinges, just a frame in the void. But there was something else. Right beside it, hovering midair, was a floating form. A window of sorts, like a projection screen, replaying memories. My memories. There I was locking the office. There I was sprinting down a stairwell. There I was turning a key in a door as voices screamed behind me. And finally, there I was lying under a slab of concrete. Unmoving, bleeding from the head. Eyes wide but lifeless. My voice trembled. I died here. The other me nodded. You did. We all did. But your mind stayed. I reached for the door, but it didn't open. A voice, my own, echoed from behind. You can't leave until you accept it. I turned. Accept what? That you're gone. That they're gone. That none of this can be fixed. The floating window shifted again. It showed a funeral. 5 caskets. A small crowd. My parents, aged and hollow-eyed, sitting beside a framed photo of me. Then a headline. 5 dead in BrayTech collapse. Cause of incident still unclear. The shutdown wasn't your fault, he said gently. But staying here, dragging us all back, was. The weight of those words hit like a collapsing ceiling. All this time, I thought I was reliving grief, that I was trapped in a dream, that the office had returned because it missed us, but it hadn't. It returned because I wouldn't let go. I took one last look around. The office was almost gone now. Only my desk remained, flickering at the edges. I asked the final question. Will I forget all this? No, he said, but you'll stop feeding it. And they'll be free. The mirror of me extended a hand. I reached out, and as our fingers touched, everything cracked. The fog tore open. Light burst in. The door slid wide, and I stepped through. Light, blinding at first, but warm. Not artificial, not fluorescent, not the ghostly blue of old monitors or flickering office lights. Sunlight. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on a park bench. The morning was pale and quiet. Leaves shifted in the trees above me. Distant footsteps. The smell of coffee drifting from somewhere. I sat up slowly. Across the street stood a tall glass building. Its sign read Well in Health and Tech Complex. Not BrayTech. Nothing of it remained. I checked my pockets. No badge. No ID. Just a single folded slip of paper. And my handwriting stopped showing up. Let the dead sleep. I stared at it for a long time, then let the wind take it. The days passed. I found a small studio apartment, somewhere quiet. I didn't return to the old neighborhood. I didn't walk those 4 blocks. I didn't search for the old address or try to find Heather or Charles online. There was no record of them. The world had moved on. Now, so had I. But sometimes, in the stillness between midnight and 3 a.m., I hear something faint. A printer hum. A light buzz overhead. And once, I swear, I saw a pale blue cardigan folded neatly at the end of my bed. Not threatening. Just remembered. I don't work anymore. Not in the traditional sense. I started writing. Journaling. Try to map the strange terrain of memory and loss, of trauma that loops and rebuilds itself like code, run too many times. I write about ghosts. Not the kind that knock on walls, but the kind that sit quietly beside you when you think you're alone. Ghosts of routine, of responsibility, of things you couldn't save. And now I leave this for you, in case you wake one morning in a job that no longer exists, in an office that no one remembers, drinking coffee beside people who shouldn't be breathing. Ask yourself, who are you feeding, and what part of you never left? If I wake tomorrow in that same chair, under that same flickering light, I'll know this isn't life. Not anymore. But for now, I'm still here, and the office is gone.